Hey and welcome, Hammeh here, and a tantalizing Overwatch blog has just dropped that may give us some hints as to who the next hero in Overwatch might be, and it may well not be something we expected after all. An interview with Efi Oladele is an Atlas News interview with an 11-year-old winner of a Genius Grant from the Adawe Foundation, who has a penchant for robotics and artificial intelligence. In this video, I'll quickly explain the story of this freshly released blog, then analyse it line by line, before finally having a speculate as to what it could mean for a new hero or perhaps an animated short. Okay, here we go. The story of the blog. Well, Atlas News is the main news reporting source we see in the Overwatch universe. We also know that it has local subsidiaries and branches in different countries. In the Sombra ARG, before Sombra was released, we saw the local Mexican branch of it reporting on various things happening in Dorado. In this blog, Efi Oladele, apparently a Yoruba name meaning something like wealth has come home, is being interviewed as she's won the Adawe Foundation's Genius Grant. A resident of Limbani, Efi is 11 years old only and has already built a resume of specific achievements in robotics and artificial intelligence. Sounds pretty useful in the Overwatch universe, we'll come on to that later. In the interview, Efi's surprised to win the award, describing it as better than winning the science fair. We've got another child prodigy on our hands here, folks. We discover that she's always been into robotics after mum and dad got her first robotics kit and has been obsessed with putting together little drones, then trying to build robots to do chores and help around the house. So all very helpful, constructive stuff. Efi then explains her motivations. She wants to create things that make people's lives better and build something one day that can keep us safe, like the new OR-15s. Now, I think both of those pieces are very significant, and I'll come on to analysing those more in a sec. Although her parents have had to put up with her, messy building robots apparently, and it can be expensive, Efi is going to use her grant for a secret project that she won't reveal to the interviewer, after she's been away with her parents on a trip to celebrate. Okay, that's a roundup of the story. I've put the link in the description below if you want to go and read it. Here's my thought on some of the interesting points we take out of it line by line. Firstly, Limbani Status in the world of Overwatch. Efi is a resident of Limbani, described as one of the world's most foremost centres of scientific discovery and exploration. Now obviously we've seen Oasis recently, but that's more science without borders, a kind of enclave of scientists working without moral constraints. Remember of course that Limbani is unique. Omnics and humans coexist there, it's known as the City of Harmony, it has Unity Day celebrations celebrating Omnics and humans living in close cooperation and proximity, and that's part of what has helped the city blossom. Efi is a child of this environment and upbringing. This has probably shaped her opinions, and I feel this will be important later in the story. Next, the Adawe link. Now, it's the Adawe Foundation's Genius Grant. We're not, of course, sure if it's the same one, but we do know of one Adawe in the Overwatch universe. That's Gabrielle Adawe. Now, all we know is that they were the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations during and shortly after the first Omnic crisis. Adawe was one of the key architects in the formation of the Overwatch Original Task Force, and in an interview afterwards had possessed some doubts as to whether the actual force could succeed. However, she admitted that Morrison and Overwatch had not only met the expectations set by the UN, but they'd surpassed them. It seems as though even though Overwatch fell, if this is the same Adawe, the foundation for example might be something an ex-Secretary General of the United Nations could start, then Gabrielle was clearly linked with Limbani. There's Adawe International Terminal in the level, Adawe Avenue, there are names of her all over Limbani, so she's clearly a significant link with the place. The next thing that was interesting to me was Efi's childlike nature. Now she is very young, 11, but she's definitely also written as a child here. You can see in the writing of her responses things like one of her friends playing a trick on her, and similar things like that. Much better than winning the science fair. There is a childlike innocence and of course a young language use there. That's reinforcing to me her young age, and actually that might have implications for whether she is playable as a hero directly in combat. Now Overwatch is fantasy violence, it's rated T for teen, sort of Peggy 13 or so here in the UK, but violence against an 11-year-old girl, even if it's fantasy violence, might be a bit much if Overwatch wants to keep its age rating. Remember, the youngest person in Overwatch at the moment is Diva at the age of 19. Now I do love her ideals though. She wants to create things that make our lives better, build something that can keep us safe, like the new OR-15s. No mention of an OR-15 so far anywhere in the universe that I've seen before. Perhaps it's some kind of mech in Limbani, some new tech. It'll be interesting to see what an OR-15 is, because it feels significant, perhaps in a Limbani context. A final point on this, remember that Efi has grown up since Overwatch was disbanded. That was 5 or 6 years ago in the current timeline. She might have been a bit young at the age of 5 or 6 herself to remember them directly, but she will remember Limbani being under attack by various forces. Remember, of course, we've seen Limbani under attack by forces in Recall and also on various news tickers in Levels. So the urge to keep us safe might come from that. That to me sounds like a defensive, protective, positive desire. Could it be a new tank? Who knows? The final interesting thing that I picked out was the several mentions of Efi's parents. Now, they got her first robotics kit, presumably I'd guess something that's not that cheap. She's also glad her parents put up with it. Robots can be messy and expensive, Efi actually shouts out in the interview. Maybe she's got parents of reasonable means perhaps. It doesn't sound as though that Limbani is a city of poverty or anything. There's no underclass of Omnics, I would imagine, in Limbani, as there is in King's Row, where we see that the Omnics have actually been driven underground almost in terms of the prejudice and attitudes going on there. And finally, Efi is being taken on a trip to celebrate, but it is her first time flying. Now, where could Efi be off to? Okay, so what could all of these points mean for a new hero or an animated short? So, first things first, I just want to state that it feels like this is the beginning of a little journey towards whatever the new hero is going to be, or maybe an animated short is going to happen. This could just be the beginning. Efi might not be directly related to Hero, but there feels as though there are a few hints and clues that might be pointing towards her involvement. First thing I think, well, new heroes. Efi is an inventor and a robotics and AI specialist. This gives her potentially everything she needs to create her own mechs and robots. She has been doing that already, we know, particularly with a focus on drones and some other robots, or perhaps working with Omnics. Now, don't forget, Limbani is the city of Omnic and human collaboration and coexistence. Efi may have worked with, learned from, or be working with Omnics already, so this has got to affect the kind of things that she gets up to. As I mentioned before, I feel that Efi is too young to fight directly if Overwatch wants to keep that T for teen rating. So what could that mean for a new hero? Well, if she's involved, one of two things. She's either controlling a hero by proxy, she can be the hero, but she's actually controlling a mech or robot somehow in battle, perhaps. She's an inventor by description. And that hero could either be a mech, sort of almost a remote controlled pilot thing, several different mechs, or an Omnic. Who knows? Different ways Efi can be involved. Well, as I said, she could be the inventor and the driver. Efi could perhaps stand in the spawn and never leave, so therefore she'll never get killed or attacked, but she could summon one mech and control it remotely into battle, sending it out from the spawn each time it dies, or perhaps several, perhaps different drones maybe with different modes. We know that Efi has invented several little drones before. You could perhaps have a recon mode drone, as people had mentioned with Athena before in the past, when they'd speculated as to what abilities Athena could have. You could have a tank mode drone as a different ability, and then perhaps maybe some kind of ultimate that uses multiple different drones or abilities at once. We've seen before in Overwatch, obviously with Bastion, he has different modes. Maybe Efi could somehow summon different summons and control those into battle. Efi could also be a mechanic or a fixer. Remember that Efi has some skills in artificial intelligence. If Efi somehow creates a self-aware Omnic AI, then she could be the fixer or support. She's actually maintaining an Omnic of her creation, but this thing perhaps has its own free will or self-intelligence. It wants to work with Efi. This Omnic could then go into combat of its own volition, and Efi could somehow be working to maintain it in a similar way that Brigitte works with Reinhardt to maintain his Crusader armor. The final thing I thought of, and this is a bit of a long shot, maybe Efi could somehow be involved in creating a shell for an existing AI, or perhaps even a god AI. Efi is a specialist in creating robots and drones. Maybe she somehow creates a new mech or a robot shell, and an existing god AI somehow gets to work inside it. She'd have to run into Winston somehow, but how about Athena? That's a very long shot on the last one. I think it's far more likely, given Efi's links, ties to Limbani that have been emphasised, her inventing credentials, her interest in drones, robotics and artificial intelligence, that she's going to make something to help protect her city, Limbani, from the troubles that have been plaguing it recently. What do you think? Finally, some speculation on an animated short. Now, obviously, I and several other people speculated off the back of a model change on the PTR recently that saw some glass broken around the payload of Limbani that we thought could have meant the Doomfist either being stolen or being attempted to be stolen. I would tie any animated short back to one of two things. Where is Efi travelling to? Perhaps we could see a short set in where she's actually travelling to, or maybe this is just a clue or a hint of somewhere she's going, and it's the beginning of a new ARG, or if it's not an ARG, then it could certainly be a lot shorter, more rapid teaser towards a new hero announcement. Blizzard have stated that they've learnt from the Sombra ARG. I wouldn't expect the process to be as long and as drawn out this time. The other thing I thought is that this particular blog might be starting a journey, a story that culminates back when Efi returns to Limbani from her trip away, with whatever Efi's secret project is being created and somehow having to swing into action to protect the city. So, there we go, that's the blog. What do you think of it, and what could it mean for a hero in future? Do you think Efi will be the controller of mechs or bots, or a creator of perhaps a self-aware Omnic? And could she still be involved somehow in what happens with the Doomfist? That feels a little bit less likely now, but either way, it'll be fascinating to see where this ride takes us. It feels like the beginning of a new hero kickoff and hype. Get your train ready. Cheers for tuning in, hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like to check out any of my other Overwatch lore and speculation, if you're new to the channel, please do throw a like, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and check out these playlists here. You can see loads of other hero lore, speculation, interactions and voice lines, and analysis of Overwatch's world, lore and more. Do throw a subscribe if you'd like to be first to get videos and notification of them in future, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make these kind of videos possible. You can see my Patreon page here too. Cheers for tuning in, I've been Hammeh, take it easy.